Friends, good evening, and thank you for joining us. We are live, another edition of Live at Night Soccer Talk, or you can flip that around, Soccer Talk Live at Night. Some of you that watch SpongeBob know what I'm talking about. The rest of you may have no idea why that old man is saying that. It's a happy, I think it's a Friday, gentlemen. I've really lost track. I say gentlemen because those the two people that will be joining me here shortly. One of them is a gentleman. The other one I'm not sure about, but we'll have two very special guests here shortly joining us. By my count, this is day 16 of our coverage, so we're very happy to have all of you with us. Friday, June 26th, almost 10:30 in the evening. We are monitoring, of course, what's going on in Group G. We've already seen matches that have finished up in Group I and Group H, so we'll definitely talk about that. We'll catch up with Victor Araiza, who was at the what is this? The fifth match played in at Houston Stadium. Already fifth match as we get ready now for the round of 32, round of 16. So a lot to talk about officially today. My little friend here to the left is the official ball of this World Cup, the 2026 World Cup, shared by the three nations. So we can talk about that a little bit more. But you know what? Enough about that stuff. More importantly, let's talk about the minds that are gracing us with their presence. They know everything about everything, and they've got great personalities as well. You see them now, and contractually, we have to introduce the gentleman in the square, the center square first. And I'm going to read the script that his agent sent over. When you introduce Enrique, refer to him as award-winning broadcaster, loose term, to be honest with you, Mr. Enrique Vasquez. Enrique, good evening. I want to make sure I get that right. You have a lot of demands from your agent. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well, Alex. Good evening, Alex. Victor, good evening as well. It's interesting to see how the budget was blown up. I mean, limitless. All these balls that we were able to purchase for the show, for the brief 3 seconds that we do the intro. But what are you gonna do with all those? Once the World Cup is over, Alex?
What am I gonna? You know what? I was thinking about a raffle Enrique Vasquez to our viewers, maybe giving them away. And I would ask you to sign them, but we need probably another addendum to the contract, so it might get a little complicated. Enrique Vasquez, it's great to see you. It's always fun to be with you. I really appreciate you being part of this. And now the other guy. There's really no agent. He kind of represents himself. He's everywhere. Don Victor Araiza, the one and only. Victor, how are you this evening? You're everywhere, sir. You just got back from the stadium, didn't you?
Yeah. I don't know if that's everywhere. That's just down the road from over at NRG Reliant. I guess it's officially now. I think that's what I've seen it being named. Did you really get all the balls, the whole set, or did you? Or I just thought you were buying these by the day and then returning them the next day to kind of just for the show.
Tag on, huh?
To help with the budget. You know what? That's actually probably pretty smart. I should approach it that way. No, we do have the set of them. It's like
that one looks kind of bootleg.
You turn.
That's not really green. That's black.
Victor, you turn that ball. See the backside is not even a ball. It's just the front side.
The transparency. Yeah, you got to be careful.
Cardboard.
It's like my toupee. You got to be real careful about how you position it.
It's like those COVID cutouts that we had in the stands, the fans. That's what that is.
One day I'm going to line them all up here so you can look at my collection of balls. I had to get that in there. Just so you know. Gentlemen, it's a Friday evening. We're giddy for many reasons because we're getting closer to the end. I can't believe, Victor, maybe let's start with this. 5 matches already played at Houston Stadium. We, Enrique Vasquez, were thinking and dreaming about the World Cup coming, and now we're past halfway. Only 2 matches left. By the way, we know the 4 teams that will be in those matches. Well, sorry, we know the first 2 teams that will be there and the 4 teams that may get to the round of 16. That's what I'm trying to say. Victor, your observations on how this is going for Houston, and then we'll get into the results from today, Group I, Group H, the surprise that we saw of Cape Verde, Cabo Verde. But let's start with that, Victor. You're back from the stadium. How are things going there?
Yeah, I think this one more than the others had a much bigger variety of jerseys. different flags. I think, we talked about it. This was going to be arguably the most affordable game, even though the prices went up. I think it still was probably the most affordable game. Some fans got to get it when tickets went down to like $160 or something like that. And it turned out to be a more interesting, match as far as the group, as far as deciding things. Obviously, Cabo Verde, I don't know, people expected them to get even a point, and they got 3 out of, for 3 draws, and they're going in as a second place in a group with Spain and Uruguay. And then, the Cinderella team will face Argentina next. So we'll see. We'll see what happens when
Be careful what you wish
the
for.
goalkeeping darling, Bocinha, meets Lionel Messi. So that obviously has a lot of storylines. But like I said, I think the other games, maybe that first one, because I think people were trying to get the first one in. The first ever World
Germany
Cup match in Houston.
The Germany Curaçao match.
Yeah. But I think even then, the left side of the stadium, or maybe I should say the north side of the stadium, had a lot of Germany jerseys. You got more of the traveling contingent. You could tell like one side was Germany, the other side was Curaçao, and then you had everything in between. Obviously, when the Dutch were here, heavily on orange, with Portugal, basically all Ronaldo jerseys. And this one was the one that was most mixed. There was a section, of course, of Cabo Verde. There was a section of Saudi Arabia, but all throughout sprinkled, I think you saw every nationality you can think of in Houston, Texas, represented, and a lot of flags. And I think for that reason alone, and maybe also because it was the only night game out of the bunch, everything else is a noon kickoff. You got to see really this be a celebration of the sport for Houstonians. And obviously, because of the Cinderella team in Cabo Verde, you heavily rooting for Cabo Verde, even though I'm sure that was only a section. The Cabo Verde Nationals were only a section of whatever the attendance was. I don't think it was announced. But
was it announced? Was it as full as the previous 4 matches? That was a good question. And you and I discussed this.
There was a few empty seats. I'm guessing it didn't. I'm obviously not a full house. I'm assuming there was a lot of the stingy resale, companies or individuals that didn't get to sell the tickets, and you saw those empty seats. The only other close game was probably that first game, which probably had the same issue with, a lot of tickets that didn't get resold and ended up, staying empty. So I would say probably 60,000 or whatever it's close to capacity as you probably could, but still a good crowd. And again, a crowd that was just into wanting to get a World Cup game in and getting that experience. And especially with the teams that we're about to get here in the next couple rounds. I think this was obviously the easiest ticket of the bunch.
Enrique, have the 5 matches, in your estimation, met the anticipation we had, the energy that we have been seeing? I think every match, again, not physically being present at every match, I'm still gauging that it's just something unique, something historic, something that so many people are getting behind. And of course, the Cinderella story tonight really capping it off, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think as good as could have been expected, especially with a mismatch early with Germany and Curaçao, and then this one not really having a superstar that so you could hang your hat on. But for the first 5, it hasn't been bad. It hasn't been good. It's been good. So I like the result out of this. So far, the experience for new soccer fans that made the purchase and maybe got into the stadium, they were impressed. I would imagine for the most part. I really haven't heard anybody on social media anywhere come away with saying, "Oh man, this was boring," or "Why did I spend this money?" It's been nothing like that. So now it's about the round of 32, and man, you turn it up a couple, 3, 4 notches, right, with the Brazil and Japan coming into town. But let's go back to this Group H. Cabo Verde, a beautiful story, obviously, and they get to celebrate on the pitch watching the end of the Uruguay match. But for Uruguay, what a giant disaster, them not qualifying. It was there for them to, they get a result today and they're in, and they couldn't manage a tie. Obviously, they put themselves in a situation where they had to get points against Spain. And man, that team was just falling apart over the last few weeks. You saw today when some of the substitutions were made late is just a team in complete disarray. And truly, I mean, the way they've played in this tournament, they really didn't deserve to advance. And they were close. They had a chance, but what a disappointment for Uruguay to not come out of the group stage.
Victor, your thoughts on this? Again, disappointing, shocking. Not the result against Spain, just them not getting through the group. I think maybe that's one context to give it. But Uruguay standards are huge. This is. Can you use that word, Victor? This is a failure for Uruguay.
Absolutely, it's a failure because I think these are the two teams that everybody expected to get out, whether it's first or second, and that it was obviously going to come down to the last match. But I think people, and it was with first place implications, but again, not the same, weight on this game, because obviously the way Uruguay was coming in, still could have won it. All they needed was a tie. I was waiting to see if it would get interesting from the other game standpoint, if Cabo Verde would challenge for the top spot. Saudi Arabia could have stayed alive if they won, potentially advance, and then but ultimately, I think that the two deserving teams out of the group, Spain and obviously what Cabo Verde has done, it's been amazing. But yeah, failure for Uruguay, and especially with not just the talent that they have, even if it's not the best Uruguay side in years, it's still, I think, a formidable side, and obviously big question mark on Marcelo Bielsa.
Exactly.
I think his, I'm a big fan of him, but I think is obviously, maybe a little too old for the current generation. Probably tells you that the old school way doesn't necessarily resonate as much but again, this was certainly with this generation of Uruguay, maybe too much tough love. I don't know the right answer, but it certainly draws a lot of question marks to Bielsa and his methods, and I obviously don't expect him to stay with the team.
Enrique, we were talking about this, and you were listening actually right before we went on the air. Some of us actually prepare for the show, and Enrique was trying to catch up. Bielsa, in some of his comments, he was very short. Obviously disappointed and frustrated. He's been quirky. I'm going to use that word, quirky, in keeping his head down. And again, some of these things are just, I don't think are necessary. It's too much energy wasted in that. But you know what? I can't second guess this gentleman, what he's achieved up to this point. But might this be then the last chapter? Is this the way he's going to be remembered? And that's obviously not a highlight in his career.
No, it certainly isn't. But especially coming out of this World Cup, I mean, it seemed like the group was put together, especially for Uruguay to come out, and they just were only able to come up with 2 points. Disappointing tonight, and like you said, they got to move on. But this was something that was brewing, and then when you compare that to some of the other teams that come in with somewhat expectations, Mexico, the U.S., and to be able to deliver like they have. That's Bielsa right there with the news of.
It must be.
That he probably got fired. That he's getting fired. Yeah, he's going to give us the news.
That's Enrique's agent asking him if he wants to take the Uruguay job.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. No, but I mean, just a huge disappointment for Uruguay.
Victor, how do you take that to the next level of this probably being so far the biggest team not continuing, and let's take a look at the groups in general, Victor, and this maybe gives us an idea of kind of where we are relative to who's in, who's out.
Yeah, and obviously just the last spots to decide. But obviously Argentina's looking good. France is looking good as well. I wouldn't put Norway out of question just because they lost to France. Obviously, they'd already had assured their way to the next round. Germany also, had things assured, so they kind of rotated the squad. The Netherlands are looking good as well, and they may be back on the 4th of July here in Houston. for the people that didn't catch the March that first time around. But again, I think for me, what stands out, especially the games today, Spain's not looking as strong as we thought they were, and we're going to see if they can transform here in the knockout stage, because otherwise that would be another I dare say it's a disappointment. We expected them to probably be one of the maybe the finalists and challenge for the cup, and so far I know it says 7 points, but it almost feels like they barely survived out of this group.
Yeah, just an excuse me type of goal today that put them over Uruguay, and now look at Group G. Talk about disappointment. Belgium, they're up now 1-0 in the 42nd minute, so they may come away with the points there and be able to advance out of that. Egypt is the other match. They're tied with Iran right now at 1. So if that shakes out, it would be Belgium coming up with 5 points. That would be up to 5. Is that right? Am I doing the math right?
Yeah, I'll do you one better. I'm gonna go to the live standings. Belgium's in second at 5.
5, that would be up to 5.
So they would go through as one of the top 2 sides, but we'll see. It certainly could get interesting tonight, and Belgium could even be left out depending on what happens.
When you look at today's results, were there any surprises? And I know we're jumping around from the bigger picture. Let's talk about these games, and maybe I'll take you first, Victor. Obviously, to me, the biggest surprise is Uruguay and Cabo Verde. France were rolling without any issues. Senegal putting in 5 goals. Did that surprise you? And then, of course, we're watching the last 2 games of Group G, New Zealand, Belgium. In that match, Enrique, help me out here. Belgium up 1-0, and Egypt and Iran are tied 1-1. Again, we've been talking about that math and live standings. But Victor, I'll start with you. What jumps out at you here with so far what's happened today?
Yeah, today I think it has to be Uruguay, at least to this point, unless Iran or New Zealand could make this interesting by the end of the night. But it, that could change obviously the scope of the day. But it has to be Uruguay, just because they look toothless. They all they needed was a draw, and again, it's not like the way they gave up that goal. It's not necessarily inspiring from Spain. So I would say for now, unless something changes before the end of the night, that's got to be it.
Enrique Vasquez, your thoughts on today?
Dembélé, didn't he come up with 2 goals today? France, walking away from Norway, a match that really wasn't ever really close. France, of all the superpowers, are they the ones that have looked the best so far? Would you?
I think so. But again, we have to see. I don't think they got the best Norway, right? Obviously, Holland.
Yeah. And they did that. They did that intentionally, right? I mean, this is how 2 teams approaching this 3rd game, and this may be a good segue about how United States approached their last group game. But Victor, you were going somewhere with this, where it was a completely different approach. France were kind of all in, and Norway decided no. The round of 32 is much more important. Whatever happens here happens. Yeah,
and you could say, is that professional? Should they have gone for the top of the group and try to seal that? Or, I guess the only time will tell, right? For right now, Norway ended up getting Ivory Coast in the next round. And then they would face if they advance, they would face the winner of the round of 32 here, which is Brazil against Japan. Where do we have?
France has got Sweden.
France got Sweden. Yeah. So, I mean, but then they got Germany. I mean, that might have been the easier pathway, but, it is a long tournament, right? And you got to manage games, maybe getting one rest and especially resting your star. And I guess if you're thinking, we're probably not going to beat France at this point. Let's get a couple wins, and if we face them in the final or something, that's a different story. That's the gamble they decided to take. Yeah, but they've obviously been putting an impressive tournament.
Is I don't know how to say this. Every match should be meaningful, right? When we get to the World Cup, Enrique Vasquez. Clearly, if you take care of business and you get your 6 points, the 3rd match is potentially insignificant. whereas literally Cabo Verde, Saudi Arabia became very significant. Is this just the luck of the draw? If you take care of your first two matches, you've got the luxury of not having to worry about match number 3, and then you're into the next round where it really counts.
Yeah, of course. But then it also matters how you play. And that's where I think on the day after, I'm feeling a little better about the U.S., that with an alternate squad of 9 different starters, they were able to basically, in essence, get a 2-2 draw. They unfortunately give up the goal late, but they played well. I mean, if any other time you would have had an alternate U.S. squad get a result against Turkey in a World Cup, you would have been fine with it. Now you know that Pulisic got some minutes. They cleared all the yellow cards, and now you're healthy for the round of 32. Now with Bosnia Herzegovina on the schedule for the round of 32. So I think how they came out now look at Norway. They decided to play it the other way, rest some people, but then they get trounced all over the field 4-1. So how are they feeling about it? I mean, I think they're mature enough and have been playing well enough to say, okay, we realize what this is, and then we can step it up and flip the switch again once we start the round of 32. I don't know that the U.S., if they would have gotten a result like a 4-1 loss to Turkey, we would be feeling a lot different. So, but the 2-2 draw, they ended up losing 3-2. But it was just unfortunate circumstance there at the very end.
So let me flip it on you, Victor, as a fan who paid their money to watch the third game, and you get, I'm going to say this just to make the point, and you get the second stringers. Are you defrauding them of their experience, or it doesn't matter? And this is now not only United States, but this is now Denmark as well, right? Norway. I apologize. Norway as well.
Yeah. Somebody's gonna.
They're all the same. I'm gonna get an email about
Nordic,
that.
They're all up
all
there
those
somewhere
Nordic,
in Europe.
Sweden, Norway, Norway doing the same thing. Hey, he's sitting down. I want to see some goals. I want to break some records.
I mean, I think if you bought it before, you were probably thinking this was going to be the important game of the bunch. But I have to think, I mean, if you're a fan and you're kind of trying to see what they could be capable of, you got to see some of the starters. You got to see, Pulisic hit the field for a few minutes. But the U.S., I mean, take the results aside, the U.S. got everything they were kind of hoping for out of this game of use. They got to get some minutes for some of the guys they could use later on. They got some rest for some other guys that are important. They didn't risk the guys that had yellow cards that could be suspended for the next, the next game. And look, you could see this both ways. It's nice to win all your games like Mexico did. But if you lose in the next round, it doesn't mean anything. I think for the U.S., that's kind of what they're focused on. And we'll see if that's what ends up happening. But if you end up, advancing here, deep into the tournament, it's not going to matter in the bigger scope of things. And as a fan, I think you're just probably glad you got a game in on this run, and you're hoping they go far.
And now, as everything is shaking out, you have the U.S. taking on Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then you look at what Mexico may have to do, Victor. It looks like might be Ecuador. So now, all of a sudden, that's going to be a challenge for Mexico. They've been fortunate a couple of the first two games. I think the third game they finished it out like they needed to. Offensively, they were able to generate some offense and be a little more consistent or more decisive in the final third. But up until then, I mean, it had been a couple of fortunate bounces, and that's how they were to give the results. But they got the results. So kudos to Mexico. They come away with 3 wins. But now they're gonna, as it shakes out now. And I was listening to, still it hasn't been official, but it looks like it's going to be Ecuador. So that to me, that's the tougher of the 2 matches for these CONCACAF teams, USA and Mexico, as the U.S. seems to have the easier draw or the more, manageable draw here in the round of 32.
Yeah, and let's look at that a little in depth. And I was asked this question today, gentlemen, about, hey, how does it look for the United States and Mexico meeting? The only way they can meet in this bracket is in the final. So that would be an amazing run for both teams. But that's the only way, and you're seeing the bracket, at least partly looking at the bracket, and we can kind of zoom it out a little bit here. But Victor, let's take.
Well, maybe they'll meet in a third place match.
Okay,
let's not rule that out.
You're right.
Yeah,
that's a potential. But again, that would be top 4 for them to get here. If you look at the right side of the bracket, I'm going to start there, Victor, because that's the next match that's coming to Houston, Brazil versus Japan. I had Brazil in there versus facing either Netherlands or Sweden early on, but that's a marquee matchup. Let's look at that side of the bracket, Victor, La Llave. Who do you see maybe coming through here? I see a potential clash of Brazil-Mexico. Down the line. Argentina, to me, one of the favorites. There's still some slots to be open, but you take that side right now, Victor, and then I'll ask Enrique to take the left side. But how do you see the right side, Victor? From what we know now, there's still obviously some holes to fill.
Yeah, I think you probably hit the important ones. Brazil and Argentina, I think, have to be taken as favorites just because of their history in the World Cup, and because they're the kind of teams that, they can get hot at the right time and have some talent that could take them far. We'll see how far Mexico goes. I think, the key there is that if they continue to advance, they would have both games at home. And that could hopefully help them get at least to the quarterfinals, and we'll see what they do after that. We still have some teams to put in here, like England. Right. Let's see where they fall. The teams tonight, obviously, Portugal or Colombia, and see what side of the bracket they go into. But interesting so far, and obviously, I think the bigger thing for Mexico and the United States is that they're playing on home soil, both of them, and at least, well, the USA obviously for the rest of the tournament, but Mexico at Azteca and the altitude for the next two rounds, and obviously anywhere they go in the US, you would expect them to have a heavy support. So obviously for us, that's a storyline to see how far they can go, and if they can make this their best World Cup to date.
On the other side, and thank you for that, Victor, on the other side of the bracket, Enrique Vasquez, you've got Germany, you've got France, of course, which are potentially meeting in the round of 16 if they get through Paraguay and Sweden, respectively. So that, to me, jumps out. The one of the host nations, Canada, if they get through South Africa, they will be here in Houston, by the way, against the winner of Holland and Morocco, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have Spain in the United States. What jumps out at you from what we know today, Enrique Vasquez, of teams kind of moving along beyond maybe the round of 16? And, I'm taking notes because I got a bet in Vegas.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, it looks like a France-Holland, right, quarterfinals.
Yeah.
And then on the bottom side, obviously Spain and the U.S. is right there. I don't know who else is going to land in those other two slots that are still open or not decided as of tonight.
Right.
But I mean, if the U.S. could end up taking on Spain, I think that's a good showing for the U.S. And then we'll see. Obviously, because Spain certainly hasn't shown what they traditionally tend to be. But I mean, it's playing out to me for France, Spain traditionally, but if the U.S. can pull off a surprise, why not a semifinal there? I mean, it could be. If this team is what they've shown us for the first two matches, and then in the moments that they had, and with Pulisic coming onto the end of the game here in the second half, they may have enough offense and defensively, just clean up some things, and obviously with the energy that the U.S. is with behind us, the U.S. team, who knows?
Why not us, to be honest with you, Enrique Vasquez? And this is probably the first time in the history of me watching World Cups, and I go back to 70, 74, 78. I was kind of...
I thought you went back to the first one.
Thank you, Enrique. Thank you, Victor Araiza.
Yeah, he watched that World Cup in smoke signals, Victor.
There you go. Did you see the... I was going to say the young man just out of, the journalist out of Argentina who got honored by his fellow journalists. 19 World Cups, I believe. This is his 19th that he's credentialed for.
Isn't that amazing?
And I want to get this right.
If you get the name, that would be great.
Macaya Marquez, covering his 18th World Cup.
That's amazing.
That's what it is.
That's amazing. That's wow. Congratulations. Enrique, you're almost there. You're at 17, right? No, that's an accomplishment. When we have gentlemen Enrique, we were talking about this a few days ago, kind of a little off topic, but is it Don Rene Cardenas, right?
Yeah, Rene Cardenas, yeah, with the Astros,
With
had
the
been here forever.
Astros. He passed away this year, Enrique Vasquez, right? He was in his 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But when you see his trajectory, he was a trailblazer, and you start looking back at the coverage, and he was a poet on air. Enrique Vasquez, you and I heard him, and we were lucky to work with him. You more than I, but we cannot dismiss that rich history. And I don't know the particulars of this gentleman, Victor, that you've mentioned, but knowing and having that knowledge and then kind of carrying it from one World Cup to the other, that's something special. In the days of literally, what are the influencers who know nothing about the sport? What was this gentleman's name? And someone's going to beat me up, Victor. I slide, I fast, I speed, whatever the guy's name is, right?
Yeah.
He was getting
I
all
run
the
a red light.
Yeah, I read. Whatever yeah, it's like that old dude knows nothing. It's very likely that I know very little. But those millions of followers. I saw 4 million followers, and a celebrity at FanFest, and people going crazy over him. We can balance both, Victor, can't we? Real knowledge, real experience of the sport, and then whatever this is, influencers.
Yeah, I think there's room for both, certainly. And obviously it's a tremendous achievement to cover 18 World Cups, and
wow.
Think of all the history that this man has witnessed. But yeah, sometimes not as much priority maybe on some of these
passing on that
pioneers.
knowledge. Forgive me, Victor. And passing on that knowledge, Enrique, do you believe in the split? Sure. Let's give the traditional journalists who've been here 10, 15 times credentials, but also let's give the eye speeds their share of the pie. Is that where we are today?
Well, I guess that's where everything is going, right? But I'm still more traditional, right? If they want to do what they want to do, that's fine. It's not my cup of tea, but that's fine. They don't have to cater to me all the time. I still want to focus more on the matches and the games and what's going on and the stories of the players beyond that. But it's been a World Cup of some good notes. The attendance, number one, Victor, already surpassing the all-time record for attendance, and we still have quite a ways to go. The crew of women's officials from the U.S., they've now worked 2 matches. Yesterday, the Holland match, the center ref was referee from Mexico, Katia Itzel, who was, for the first time ever, a Latin American female official, was the center referee in a World Cup. So it's been a lot of interesting stories and side notes that continue to make this a World Cup that's been a success. We talked about all the expectations coming in or the criticisms coming in, and it's been completely opposite of that. The fans have felt welcome. They've had a good time. The crowds, barring a couple of games here and there, like the one we had today, unfortunately, but it was to be expected. I know nobody was going to be upset that it wasn't 68,972 or whatever the number has been, but still a very good crowd, energetic crowd. I think they got their money's worth, and they got to see history on top of that.
Before you answer, Victor, let me give you some numbers that we got this afternoon. There's been over 500,000 fans, 557,979 across FIFA World Cup related events in Houston through the first 15 days of the tournament. That's over 500,000. The average visitor per day at the Houston Fan Fest, 16,431 fans, just to give you that perspective. This end of this evening, and I was going to mention this, 21 goals scored at Houston Stadium so far. The 0-0 tie, of course, today between Cabo Verde and Saudi Arabia kind of ending that, where we even had a total of 8 goals in the very first match with Deutschland and Curaçao. And lastly, 36,000 supporters participating in official fan walks. Just to give you an idea of some of the numbers. Victor, I'll let you go with those numbers and the success bit of it and the numbers. You've lived it probably on the ground more than certainly I have. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I still think those numbers could be even higher, just because
He always wants more, Enrique
no,
Vasquez.
let's remember the Fan Fest is only 7,500 capacity.
Did they
Yeah.
underestimate? Did they underestimate that, Victor? Should it have been bigger? And then what do you do?
I think so. I mean, I would have liked to seen it like at Herman Park, something like that, where you can, what a traditional Fan Fest is, and you could probably integrate the Miller Outdoor Theater in that. But listen, there was some interest to have it in East Downtown, and obviously it's been the home of soccer here in Houston, so maybe rightly so. But we did say that was a small space, 7,500, compared especially to some of the other watch parties, throughout history, but also throughout the United States. So I think, yeah, that certainly those numbers could be bigger, just because I think, especially on days where Mexico's played, and if that overflow has hit the bars and Shell Energy Stadium, you have to think that if it was a bigger fan festival, they would have been at that fan festival, and of course those numbers would be higher. As far as the matches, I think there was a lot of talk of too expensive. People weren't going to go. But again, we talked about how even just with the people that live in the United States alone, these stadiums could have filled up. And, there's a lot of demand for, still limited supply, because even if it's only 60,000, 70,000, whatever some of these stadiums hold, it's still millions of people around the world trying to get in. And again, maybe the sad thing is that some of the seats end up being unoccupied because of the resale market. But they're still, close to full, and we're not even into the knockout stage yet. And obviously, this is the big, more matches, more teams. So this was always going to maybe shatter records. But to this level, and you wonder what that means for future editions, if
Exactly
prices are going to remain high, or if this is even sustainable, or what I think is it's going to be like that 94 World Cup, where the records just kind of stand the test of time until the next one comes around in the United States. But it obviously shows the interest of sport in this country. It shows that as a nation of immigrants, there's more than enough to go around, just in the people that live here alone, to go and sustain these games. And we'll see where it all ends. But so far, yeah, shaping up to be the best World Cup, at least maybe in history. And again, we don't know if this is going to get extended to 60 teams, like it's been talked about, what it means for prices, et cetera, et cetera. But so far, it seems like, yeah, the World Cup is bulletproof.
Yeah, and then you talk about the size of the Fan Fest, Alex. I don't remember going in the few weeks heading in. I know here in the States, obviously, there was an issue of whatever money was available or not to some of these local government entities regarding security and what had to be done, regarding the size. And I know some cities scaled back not only the Fan Fest size, but some of the locations to maybe just one or two, as opposed to 3 or 4 locations in the bigger cities. I don't know if that was the case necessarily here in Houston, if they had to scale back late because whatever money wasn't available to them or not. But I know that was an issue, or it was talked about as an issue around the country. But the fans have turned out. I think the use of Shell Energy was a hit. I wouldn't have expected that many people to show up in the heat to watch those matches, but they turned out and they had a good time. And in the end, if people are willing to pay whatever they're willing to pay, that's the price of the ticket. And whether it's an NBA Finals, a Super Bowl, or in this case, just to sit in the stadium to watch the game on the big giant screen, go ahead, enjoy it. And that's what it's all about. Have a good time, whatever it is, where it's worth it to you. I know that people are talking about, the fans got priced out. Well, that's life. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I can't imagine that we were going to expect that the people of low income were going to be able to afford a ticket regardless of how much it was going to cost. And it was always going to be an expensive ticket.
And that's, I think, the supply and demand, Victor and Enrique Vasquez. And like you said, Enrique, that's everything's going up. My Dr. Peppers keep going up in price. I had no idea. But I got to have my Dr. Pepper every so often, and I'll find a way to pay for it. So maybe this applies to sports and to entertainment, which we can't forget. Enrique, missed opportunity. I know Victor and I and you have discussed maybe having the Fan Fest elsewhere. Maybe was it too little, and that'll be a regret, or was it manageable because maybe you didn't know what kind of attendance you would get?
Well, you don't want to have the problems that they had in Monterrey, was it? Where fans just opened up the gates, they were sneaking in under the fences, and then people were in danger. When you have overcrowding and crowd control issues, then you don't want to get to that that point. So I think, if you're going to err on the side of caution and make it enjoyable for everybody and for families to be able to come out, we certainly don't want the issues that we've had, with obviously here in Houston, that concert there in the parking lot a few years ago, where unfortunately some people lost their lives.
Yeah, that was awful.
If we want to err on the side, okay, well, let's limit this to 7,500 or whatever the number was, but everybody's going to have a good time and it's going to be a safe experience, then I'm all for that as well. That's the most important.
That at the end of the day, the safety factor is the most important. Victor, you lived it again today at Houston Stadium. When you were kind of recapping about your experience this evening, how was the flow of everything? Traffic, security, still a high standard? Did you feel comfortable with the process? And it's so hard. Again, Victor, you weren't on with us last night, but I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the media. And yes, I have a friend, just one, and who's in the media. And he was talking about, look, when the World Cup was announced and I started covering it, I was very skeptical about X, Y, and Z. We talk about this almost nightly, Victor. There's very little to really diminish so far because it's gone off so far, knock on wood, without any issues. And any reasonable person will say, this is great. This is successful by any means, by any measure.
Yeah, I think, we talk about FIFA a lot, about where they get it right, where they get it wrong. But I mean, I think in the organization of World Cups, that's one of the areas where they absolutely get it right. They have all the experience of hosting these events. And that's where I kind of take a little credit off the local organizing committees, right? Because I think a lot of this stuff is mandated by FIFA, where we need this, and this. Otherwise, you don't get the games. And you see now that FIFA, all that experience, you see it now here. I think it's well organized. I think they, we don't have any of the issues, and we weren't ever going to have them that we saw in the Copa America. If you want to contrast that to somebody like CONMEBOL organizing something, we knew this was going to be like a tight-run ship. In many ways, like a Super Bowl held at that same stadium, at these same stadiums, maybe even a different level of security just because of the worldwide attention. So yeah, I think it's been a smooth operation. We're almost done with it here in Houston. But I think the flow of people into some of these stadiums, the flow out, the limiting of parking, if we can talk about maybe the public transportation, maybe that's more on, some cities in the United States like Houston, where maybe we don't use it as much or invest in it as much as we would have liked. But otherwise, I think it's been a tightly run ship, and you can see it. And so far, no issues. And they're obviously not going to tell us, any warnings or anything that they've run across. But I mean, so far we've seen nothing in any of these host cities. Which that was my biggest concern, is when people were saying, 7 Super Bowls or whatever, and you multiply that to however many Super Bowls across all these host cities in 3 countries. That was always my concern. Is, I mean, running one Super Bowl is tough enough.
Sure.
How are you going to do this at the same time? But that so far, no problems.
And I think real quick, Alex, as us as fans and then as media types analyzing or nitpicking all these things, we certainly have to understand this is not like just the Texans game on a Sunday where you fit 71,000, a few more people into the building. They just had to have several more layers of security because of the magnitude of this event and the nature of the World Cup event. So if they had to shut down a couple of gates, and then you had to impose certain regulations, that it'd be like somebody coming into your house, Alex, and telling you, no, instead of using the front door, now you have to park here and you got to do that. Well, that's just what you have to do because of the nature of the match. And that was also, that was going to have some glitches. It wasn't perfect, but it was manageable. And I think the fact that people were getting there early enough and before matches certainly helped in anticipating that there were going to be some delays, because there were some videos, Victor, of people an hour before kickoff still sitting in line, 100 deep. trying to get into the gates. But once the word got out, people started managing that a little bit better. And obviously, with the experience they already had, the people working the gates and working access to the stadium, it all fixed itself. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's certainly not just a Texas game happening 7 times. It's way more layers of security that have to be managed. And I think the city of Houston has done a really good job of getting people in and out with limited resources, like you mentioned. I mean, this isn't a city where we're going to jump in a cab or a bus and get around. It's just not practical for everyday use. For me, I live an hour and a half north of Houston. I'm not going to get in a cab. The public transportation just doesn't work for me. I don't necessarily live in Houston, but that's where I work. That's where I live. That's where I go to watch games. But it's just a different animal.
Yeah, and I think again we talked about it. They might not have known what they were getting into, but after that first game, they got the idea. But here's the other thing about the difference between some Super Bowls, right? I get it. We have a lot of celebrities at these games, but we also have big dignitaries where the closest thing you could probably compare it to is you just saw recently the NBA Finals. It's already heightened security for an NBA Finals game, but when the president shows up, it moves up tenfold, right? And at some of these, I think we had the leaders of the Netherlands for that game. Obviously, the Cristiano Ronaldo match, I think will have much more security just because of the nature of who's playing. So that it's not like your regular Super Bowl where you're just expecting celebrities, which already has more security enough. You got leaders of different nations at some of these games. Sometimes the leader of FIFA, Gianni Infantino. So for that reason, I think that's why FIFA takes all this into account, and that's why they take full control of everything. And so far, I think they've even run it better than some of these own stadiums. I've talked about just from the treatment of the press, the fact that we get the windows open in that press box. I mean, to me, it's a game changer. You get to feel the atmosphere inside the stadium. The way they have all the broadcasters in the media tribune on essentially what's like the 600 section. And again, for the same reason, so they can have the vantage point of being in the middle of the field. I mean, all that stuff is, I wish we'd have it, even if it's to a smaller scale at Shell Energy Stadium, where we instead of, being stuck in the corner, have a higher vantage point for press, all that kind of stuff. And that's where when you see that from the top leaders of the sport, that's why they are the top leaders of the sport, and we can criticize them on other fronts, but on this stuff, they get it right.
They got it right.
The field too, by the way, like I've said, no big tractors. It's all basically person by person. Everybody's walking through, checking. I mean, it's night and day to what we have, and even the NFL's taking stuff like that into account. Hey, players want the grass field. Players saying, why can't we have this in the NFL? Why can't we have this treatment? The curtains at the Cowboys Stadium, right? Why do we got to deal with the sunlight? There's one thing, and again, we can criticize it for maybe how they don't put this kind of attention on the women's side of the game. But when you talk about the Men's World Cup and the attention to detail to making the product on the field the best, bar none, you got to take your hats off to them.
The money certainly dictates a lot of that, and the revenue that everything is generating.
I'll let you keep talking, Enrique, I promise. If you're just joining us, friends, we appreciate it. Alex Parra, Enrique Vasquez, Victor Araiza talking about the World Cup, the last game of the group stage, at least scheduled matches in Houston taking place today. There'll be 2 more matches, round of 32, round of 16. Enrique, do you have an update? As we're on live, we're monitoring Group G, New Zealand, Belgium, and Egypt and Iran.
Belgium is up 2-0, and the other game, Egypt, Iran, is still a 1-1 tie.
So just to kind of give you an idea that I want to shift gears quickly, guys, before we talk about tomorrow's matches and we wrap up our show for this evening. Culturally, and I think we've talked about this individually. I don't know if all 3 of us have discussed this. These are really important and I think historic moments for many of us that have Mexican roots, Latin American roots, Mexican in particular. Enrique, do you sense that our culture, our sports culture, which means football, which means soccer, is becoming more mainstream, certainly in Houston? Is that acceptance of it, that coverage of it, that energy of it becoming something more day-to-day, more mainstream? our numbers indicate, Enrique, that our society has changed. Again, to this friend of mine that I was talking to, we talked about the '94 World Cup and how in '94 it was still an outsider sport in many ways. The coverage wasn't there, the pride wasn't there. Now there are so many families, literally, that are wearing both jerseys proudly and not having to choose one over the other. Enrique, I'll start with you. Is this also a cultural movement and a change in culture that's going to be more accepting, and even the people that don't know what the group stage is, what the round of 32, too many flags, why is it Turkey now versus Turkey? This is evolving, but to me it just feels like we're at a moment of change for Mexican Americans in many ways, and in a good way, without excluding anyone, Enrique. Does any of that make sense, or am I just ranting like always?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, the attention to the World Cup and the soccer is going to continue to be what it is in the Spanish-speaking media. That's not going to change, whether it's Telemundo now, Univision later down the road, or Fox Sports in Espanol, providing coverage for soccer. That's going to continue, though. They're still going to get viewers for that. I can't imagine that, Channel 11, 13, and 2 are going to break into, into Sunday morning or middle of the week sports updates giving you Champions League scores starting this year. That's not going to happen. You're not going to hear Champions League debate or Premier League debate, La Liga debate on sports radio here in town. That's just not going to happen. It's just not. But it doesn't matter. They don't have to. You just tune into whatever, cater to whatever you want. I mean, there's plenty of places if you want in English coverage of soccer where you can find it nowadays. So that is no longer an issue. So, but now it's just a matter of yeah, now there are. Back in 1994, I mean, the Spanish language broadcasters were not the number one in the market. Now they are. Telemundo, Univision, they're the number one broadcasters on TV in this market. Radio follows as well. Whatever the top stations are, they're usually in Spanish. So that has changed. But again, if you want English language coverage of soccer, tune into Victor. I mean, he gives it to you just as good as anybody around the country. So there's no need for all the other sources to change, even if they want to maintain those ways and limit themselves to that market and what they know. So be it. I'm not saying that they're bad or they need to catch up with times. No, I mean, if that's your lane and you're comfortable with it, stay in it. There's plenty of places now to find that information if you seek it.
Victor, is this changing because people are seeing that there's a market, that there's a need for this? Look at all three of us, by the way. I consider us bilingual. I consider us bicultural. I consider that we can talk about one football versus another football equally. Both of you are masters at your respective sports here. But it's not jeopardizing anything of culture or excluding anyone. Victor, again, I sense this is a moment that can also not only help the sport of soccer, as we call it in this country, but culturally, I see a change, and I'm proud of that change. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think it should probably. I mean, it was always going to be an eye opener as far as I think there's more soccer fans than people know, and maybe now you're just finding out, hey, my neighbor watches soccer too, or the guy down the street. Or this bar, has more soccer fans than I thought, or maybe a bar is just saying, oh, I didn't know people watch that much soccer, but now that I have the games on, this is really filling my place. Maybe I should look in. I think all these things are happening, right? At the same time, if you put sports radio on, they're talking Astros and Texans off season. And maybe if they're at a local watch party or local bars had them out, maybe they're mentioning, oh, Vinny Jr. just scored or something like that. So, part of it we talked about is the people also that are in some of these positions, whether it be editors or heads of stations or the hosts themselves. Some of it has to come from maybe the audience asking for more, but until that changes, it might just stay the same. They might die out. They might not die out, and maybe there's too much of an audience for traditional radio and TV here in town. But I think for sure it's no longer a secret that some of these cities, Houston included, is a big soccer market. unless people just want to, lie to themselves and say, oh, we had a lot of people coming from the Netherlands, a lot of people coming, and you have some travelers, but I think a lot of the people here are people that live in town and that live in and breathe the sport every day.
And that's also
yeah.
just, I mean, the basics of how people get their information now, Alex. I mean, don't tell my buddies at Telemundo, but I mean, very rarely do I sit down to watch Telemundo. I mean, that's just the nature of how it is. Basically, the only thing that I watch live is sports. I don't sit down on Tuesday to watch Friends, or whenever that show used to come on, or sit down to watch on a Wednesday NYPD Blue. Remember that show?
Sure.
The appointment viewing is no longer a thing. You
Yeah.
watch it when it's done. The only thing that's live that you sit down to watch is sports. So that's why to me, I don't think. Again, like I mentioned, local sports radio is not going to change. They got to focus on the Astros, the Rockets, and the Texans. That's the main,
But Enrique,
and the Dynamo as well.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of other sources. If they want to hear soccer and Dynamo talk, I mean, they come right here.
Sure.
And that's perfectly fine. That's fine.
But if you don't change, Enrique, I think you also show your age, number one, and you're going to die out. Victor and I have had this conversation. You and I have had this conversation.
I don't know that you die out. I don't know that you die out. People still want to hear Rockets, Astros, and Texans talk all the time anyway. So they're not
more than soccer talk. And Victor, we can be very candid about this. Mainstream traditional radio. Let's talk about that. We know one person, Glenn Davis, who has been there for years. He's entrenched. And I'm not saying this because I have any inside knowledge, but it's not like he's thriving in this business. I wish there was more support for the Glenn Davises and his show and what he does. Is this the moment where that changes? That's what I'm trying to say, Victor. Is this the moment where it gets catapulted to not only Glenn Davis, but we got 6 other shows, and we have knowledgeable people that play the sport, that know the sport, that follow the sport, and it's part of now your Rockets, your Astros, your Texans, and your Dynamo Dash coverage. Does it have that potential? That's going to be a recurring theme.
I think there's crossover. I don't think you necessarily have to sacrifice the Astros, Texans, and Rockets talk. I think more people watch soccer as part of their weekly viewing, where you can weave that in there at times, depending on what's going around the world, especially with the national team, whatever. But again, you have to have the hosts or editors that ask for that have the knowledge. That can weave that in there seamlessly, right? Like right now, I guess my issue is just, talking depth of the Astros and the Texans, is that going to draw more ratings than maybe, a current event like the World Cup and what's going on there and some of these storylines, and some of this stuff is just inevitable if you're following the World Cup. If people are talking about it online, but we'll see. I still think, some of these stations, maybe you'll see them die off if they don't adapt. Some of these also, like if you're just on TV, those are more personal interest stories. So maybe those are being covered. I've seen rather than the games itself. But yeah, I think there's a market for everything. And certainly I think the biggest one is there's a big soccer market. That doesn't necessarily translate to MLS and the NWSL, which, that's, if we're saying, why doesn't more people follow the Dynamo or the Dash? And this goes across every city. I think that's a separate story, but I think people follow the sport enough to where if you bring a Messi to MLS, people will want to go out to games. People, know enough about the sport that they're going to want to watch. If you bring a big star to Houston, maybe particularly one from this World Cup, I think there'll be more interest in some of that. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of a few far between, but it is lived here.
I think it
there
says
are
a lot.
personal stories.
I think that Fox has done a really good job in doing some of those human interest stories that you talk about.
Yeah.
I haven't watched too much of the pregame shows with Telemundo, but I just haven't seen that type of content. It's always just a fan on the street. What do you think? And it's let's party, and which is fine. But if you really want to introduce people in this country to new players, for me, that's one of the reasons that I don't watch hockey. I can sit down and enjoy a hockey game, Victor, but I can't tell you who stars and who plays for anybody. We may be able to get the NHL here in Houston, and maybe that'll naturally bring me more attention to that sport. As much as I want to get into it, because I don't know who the players are, I don't have that background information. I don't start to follow them. I don't have a favorite team or a favorite favorite player. Obviously, we go back to Wayne Gretzky and all that, but that's my point for me. So, and that's where I think U.S. soccer or U.S. sports fans miss the boat on these world-class players, is because simply the stories aren't presented to them on that level, and also the fact that it's taking an event so big as a World Cup to maybe that'll do it. Maybe that'll find it. Goodness gracious, I love football because I love football, but I don't only love football when it's Super Bowl time. So that says a lot, that we're hoping that the greatest sports event in the world, the World Cup, is what it's going to take every 4 years, and now every 20 years or whatever it took to bring it back here to the U.S. That says a lot to me. Is like it takes that big of an event to come here to raise the awareness. Well, I mean, that in itself is like, well, that's not going to happen again next year. So now how are we going to keep that momentum going?
Yeah, how does it keep going? That's why these two are amazing, Enrique Vasquez and Victor Araiza. And friends, what do you think? Is this a time of evolution for the sport? Culturally, what does it mean for Houston, for Texas? A lot of questions, I think, that we can ask ourselves. And then what will happen with the legacy of this 2026 World Cup? Gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about tomorrow. Today it's been a full day. It continues to be full, but tomorrow's matches, Enrique, I'll start with you. What jumps out to you tomorrow? Panama is out, but you mentioned England is one of those teams that should be in the round of 32. What else jumps out to you, Enrique Vasquez?
Well, if you could make that screen bigger for my old eyes, that would help. That would help a little bit, Alex Parra.
That's the Argentina. That's the Argentina flag. Some guy named Messi is playing tomorrow potentially. Enrique Vasquez.
Yeah, obviously those two clubs stand out with England and Argentina. Argentina on a roll. He's not going to play. Messi's not playing tomorrow. They've already made that. I read that somewhere. So again, playing it smart. They've earned that right to give him a day off, and obviously at his age that's good for him. But I would guess them in England. Those are the matches to watch tomorrow.
What about Colombia, Portugal, Victor? That's an intriguing matchup that has potential there.
Yeah, that's the must-watch for me, just because that's going to decide the group. And I want to see what Portugal's made of. I think they got it easy here. No disrespect to the Congo and obviously Uzbekistan, but is that kind of a Band-Aid, the victory over Uzbekistan, or is Portugal good enough to beat Colombia? Selfishly, I guess I'd like Portugal to kind of finish second in the group, just so we can maybe have a Portugal-Argentina final. If the powers that be make that happen. As much as I like to see Portugal-Argentina, I don't know if the quarterfinals is the place to have it. But then, maybe I'm asking too much to ask these teams, both of them, to go to the final.
Before we leave, guys, what about the last two matches? Enrique Vasquez, Monday, we have Brazil, Japan, and Houston. And then on July 4th, Victor, we'll have the winners of match 73 and 75, potentially, Netherlands and Canada. Those are my picks to move there, to move out of there. Enrique, we're coming toward the end. I feel almost like, the glass is now half empty versus half full. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss talking to you guys. I mean, we're not there yet. Still a lot to enjoy, but man, it's gone. For me, at least, it's gone by fast.
Yeah, but we're going to go out with a bang, right? Those two matches, whoever ends up playing in that round of 16, that's going to be a very entertaining match. And obviously, when you go knockout stage, you have to have a winner, PKs potentially, and then Brazil. Who is Brazil, and can Japan finally have that breakthrough win? They've always been sort of the darlings in the World Cups here the last few turns around, last few times, but they've never been able to take that next step. Kind of like Mexico, right? Quinto partido. That's the situation almost that Japan may find themselves, and it's going to be a hard one. I mean, the Brazil is still Brazil, so the fact that we're going to go out in Houston with two really good matches in that type of setting, right? The knockout stage where you have to have a winner. That's soccer at a whole new level beyond what we've seen so far here in this World Cup.
Victor, we've had the Netherlands, we've had Sweden, we've had Cabo Verde, we've had Portugal. Is this now the next level when Brazil comes here for a knockout match? Just like Enrique mentioned, but we're talking Brazil. We're talking, the best of the best traditionally in this sport.
It's like when the Yankees come to town, or the Cowboys, or pick any sport, pick the top team or that has the most gravitational pull. That's Brazil, 5-time world champions. They may not have the best squad overall, depending on who you ask, but they got enough stars. They got a top manager, and they bring the fans as well. And again, I think two good countries. Certainly, and we have everything in Houston, but I have to think Brazil fans locally are going to show out. Japan fans locally are going to show out, and that would probably make this the hottest ticket, the best, if you got it out of the matches in Houston. But yeah, don't sleep on if we have, and obviously Brazil again brings its own, marquee, right? But if we get Canada, could still be South Africa, and the Netherlands coming back. Again, we have enough Canadians in town, and obviously the Dutch already played here, and I would think would only have a better time with more people joining in that March. We saw the big numbers in Kansas City. This thing's only going to grow as much as they keep going forward. And if we'll see what ends up being overall. But I mean, what a palette that we've had of games of nations visiting the city. So I think certainly one of the better ones, I think, across all the host cities here in 2026.
Maybe you can ride the bus, Alex.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, Enrique Vasquez. I'm like you, but I'm an hour and a half west. You're an hour and a half north. I liked your comment earlier. That just doesn't work for me, right? I should try that, though. Think about getting public transportation from where I live out in Katy to go into the game. It would take me, 3 days and a couple of hotel rooms?
Well, I mean, my son, Nick, I think he's working the broadcast on the audio, on the production side with Telemundo, with the World Feed.
At the Houston Stadium.
At the Houston Stadium, Victor, and they told him for the first match, we can't give you parking. Those are sold by FIFA, so take an Uber. He lives in Huntsville. So basically, when he got up at 3 a.m. For that first match, Uber basically started laughing at him, said, "There's no way. There's no Uber that's going to take you to Houston Stadium at that point." So now, public transportation just doesn't work for how we move around in this part of the country. No, there's just no way.
Yeah, it isn't very practical. Gentlemen, we've got to go. We're over the hour limit. It's flown by, and I can't thank both of you enough. Also, friends, thanks to all you for joining us. Victor, a final word before we close tonight.
Yeah, obviously, last day of the group stage tomorrow, and we'll see how that ends up. And then we'll have the full picture. We'll know who's facing who, which of the third place teams have advanced. And it's bracket time. It starts filling them out, and then we'll have the elimination games that obviously bring us so much drama and the potential of extra time and penalties if necessary.
Very exciting. Victor, excellent coverage. Thank you for being part of this show and for all you do for our sport. Enrique Vasquez, a final word before we wrap up tonight.
Belgium up 3-0. They're going to take care of business, pick up the win. And then the other match, Egypt-Iran, is still tied at 1. That match is around the 72nd minute. So, tomorrow, like Victor says, we'll get a bigger picture and see who Mexico ends up taking on and start the hype for Mexico-U.S. down the road for their respective matches. That always sets the tone, right, for especially here in Houston, city of Houston, with the fan bases that both of those teams have. And, man, it's going to be fun down the road.
It will be. Enrique, it's also fun to have you with us. We really appreciate it. I'm glad we caught you in this moment in between all your projects. So we're grateful that you're with us. You still need to polish a little bit on your broadcasting skills, but that's why you're here at this show.
Today I went with the Rojo, la Madre Patria Spain, picking up the win today.
That's what that was. And by the way, Emmy award-winning. Don.
Yeah, I just had to get another shot of
Enrique Vasquez,
that's the only reason I put that color on.
Contractually, friends, we have to do that. So on behalf of our production staff, we thank all of you for being part of this show, watching us, following us. If you do it live, great. If not, we appreciate when you do tune in. So on behalf of Victor, on behalf of Don Enrique, I'm Alex Parra. Thanks to all of you for joining us, for following us. Let's keep going on this World Cup coverage. Take care of yourselves. Please have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.